Hello world, this is Lisa Fredrickson, your friend and professor from Johnson County Community College. And we've been working so much with the GPA calculator, I thought it might be fun to try just a different example and show you how to create an image slider, which simply takes an image that loads automatically and then allows you to switch between different images as desired. Now, I have 10 different puppy images here. This is the 10th. And when I hit the last puppy image, I go right back to the first. When I'm at the first puppy image and I hit previous, I go back to the last and back through all the different puppy images until I get back to the first one, and then here's my 10th one. So this one is puppy0.jpg, and here's my HTML. It's very simple. I have a button that I've ID'd as PREV with a PREV previous caption. I've got another button called Next that is ID'd Next, and I put the text Next on it. And then in between the two is my image element, which is ID'd Slider, and the SRC attribute is set to puppy0.jpg. Now here's a little shortcut I took just to make all the images the same size, height equals 100. But we know from responsive web design principles that we don't want to set our height or width attributes in our HTML. We prefer in the style sheet to use a style such as max-height is 100% to allow those images to flex and grow on different viewport sizes. But because I was hurrying, I went ahead and just set the height to be 100 pixels here in the HTML. In the real world, I would want you to take those images, all these 10 images, I've named them puppy 0 through puppy 9 JPG, into Photoshop and optimize them for the web before manipulating them on your HTML. We have several good Photoshop classes here broken down into one-credit classes at Johnson County Community College, because images are so important to a web page. That Photoshop skill is really super important as well. But let's look at the JavaScript that creates this effect. I have event listeners on both my buttons here at the bottom, so that when I click my Prev button, I'm running the PREV function. And when I click the Next button, I'm running the Next function. And you can see in my JavaScript that I've got two global variables declared. I've got a global variable with all my images, puppy 0 through puppy 9. I've got a global variable for num. And the Next button basically says, let's also declare a slider variable. And we'll just get that element by ID of slider, and that's my image element. Let's increment the number, which we set globally at 0 by 1. And if the number becomes greater than or equal to the image's length, and that would be the length of this array. So when the num becomes 11, we're going to reset num to 0, which is how we go back to that first puppy when I get to the 10th one. And there's my 10th one, and next. And when num is 11, greater than image's length, when num becomes 11, image's length is 10, num is reset to 0, and I go back to puppy number 0. And the final statement, which actually switches the images out, is that slider.src, and remember slider is our image element, his src attribute is set to images, and then the index value of num, 0 through 9. Previous works the same way. My slider is the same variable, it's set to the image slider, only I'm decrementing, I'm decreasing the number by 1 each time I run this function. And when the number is less than 0, and the number becomes less than 0 when I start on image 0 and I click Prev. And if that happens, then the number is set to images.length, which is 10, minus 1, which is 9. So then my slider.src becomes images index number 9, which happens to be this last image right here, puppy9.jpg. So I just thought this was a really fun little exercise and wanted to share it with you. I also want to share where I got my images. If you go to either Bing or Google and you do an images search for something such as puppy, I want you to know that in the search tools you can go to usage rights and check labeled for reuse with modification, labeled for reuse. And so you can go ahead and choose a level so that you can use those images and even modify them without infringing on any copyright issues. Thank you.